Okay, so picture this. A microscopic creature, so perfectly evolved that it can slip into your brain and just quietly start rewriting how you think and act. And no, this is not the plot of a sci-fi movie. It's real. It's happening right now, maybe even inside billions of people. So let's get into this, because it's a fascinating and, yeah, a kind of unsettling story.
1 in 3. That's the number. 1 out of every 3 people on this planet. I mean, just think about that for a second. If you're with 2 other people right now, well, statistically, one of you is carrying the parasite we're going to be talking about. And we're not talking about some subtle influence here. This is a real living organism, a single-celled parasite called Toxoplasma gondii. And let me tell you, it is an absolute master of manipulation. So what is this thing and what's its endgame? All right, section 1, the parasite in your brain. So what exactly is this master manipulator? To really get how powerful it is, you first have to understand its incredibly weird and very specific purpose in life. So at its heart, Toxoplasma gondii is a tiny protozoan that's on a mission. And that mission is simple. It has to get inside a cat. See, it can infect pretty much any warm-blooded animal out there, but there's only one place it can sexually reproduce, and that's inside a cat's intestines. So its whole life is basically this elaborate plot. It needs to complete its life cycle. That means it has to find a way to get from whatever animal it's in, say a mouse or even one of us, back into a cat. And this is where the mind control comes into play. It has developed this unbelievable strategy to make that happen. Okay, section 2, the mouse and the cat. Now, if you want to see just how powerful this parasite's influence really is, you have to look at the clearest, most jaw-dropping example of its mind control, what it does to rodents. Just look at this. It's a complete 180. A normal, healthy mouse smells a cat, and every survival instinct it has screams, "Danger! Run away!" But a mouse infected with toxo, the parasite flips a switch in its brain. That same smell, the scent of its number one predator, doesn't trigger fear anymore. It triggers a fatal attraction. The mouse literally walks towards the danger. And this isn't just some spooky magic. It's some seriously elegant, if not terrifying, biology. The parasite sets up camp, forming these little cysts right in the amygdala. That's the fear center of the brain. Then it starts pumping out an enzyme that jacks up dopamine levels, the pleasure and reward chemical. It physically rewires the mouse's brain so that the smell of a cat is no longer scary. It's actually sexually appealing. And the end result? The mouse gets eaten and the parasite wins. It's back in a cat. Section 3. Are we puppets too? So this all leads to the big question, right? If this parasite can so completely hijack the brain of a mouse, what in the world is it doing to the 1 in 3 humans who are just walking around with it inside them? Well, infection is super common, but it's not the same everywhere. You can see rates as low as maybe 12% here in the US, but then they jump to something like 60% in France. A lot of that's probably linked to cultural things, like how well done people like their meat. Now, for most healthy folks, if you get infected, you might feel like you have the flu for a bit, and then the parasite goes dormant. But dormant doesn't necessarily mean it's doing nothing. Over the years, researchers have found some really weird correlations. For example, infected men, on average, tend to be a bit more suspicious and more likely to break rules. Infected women, on the other hand, tend to be more outgoing and conscientious. And get this, both groups have been found to have slightly slower reaction times, which some studies have even linked to a higher risk of car accidents. There's also some research exploring possible links to schizophrenia, which could be tied to that same dopamine hijacking we see in mice. Okay, I have to say this loud and clear. This is super important. These are just correlations. They are not proof that the parasite causes these changes. We're talking about subtle shifts, not total mind control. Toxoplasma isn't making you go out and buy a motorcycle, but the science suggests it might be giving your personality a little nudge one way or another. Section 4, how to live with it. So while it's probably not turning us all into puppets, we can't just ignore it entirely. For some people, this parasite is a very real risk. That means we need to understand how we can live alongside this invisible passenger. For most of us with a healthy immune system, our bodies do a great job of keeping the parasite locked down in those dormant cysts for life. But for people with compromised immune systems, like those with HIV/AIDS or going through chemo, the parasite can wake up and cause some really serious neurological problems.
It's also a big risk for pregnant women, but only if they get infected for the very first time while they're pregnant. In that case, the parasite can be passed on and cause serious harm to the baby. So how do we get it in the first place? Well, there are two main ways. The first is from what are called oocysts. Think of them as microscopic parasite eggs that come from cat poop and can get into soil or water. The second is from eating tissue cysts. That's the dormant parasite in undercooked meat like pork or lamb. But here's the good news. Preventing it is pretty simple. Cook your meat all the way through and wash your hands and your veggies. So we end up with this pretty wild thought. We like to think we're in the driver's seat of our own minds. But biology is just full of these invisible forces, from the bacteria in our gut that can tweak our mood to this parasite. Toxoplasma is just this amazing and kind of creepy reminder that we're all part of this huge, complicated web of life. And it really leaves you with a question, doesn't it? Is every decision, every impulse you have, really, truly, 100% your own?